Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, welcome to day 8. We've already gotten through the first full week of battle reports. We're now entering into the second. So now we gotta see where our travels take us. Last week, battle number 7 in the City of Sympathy, and I don't think the Lunar Knights had any sympathy for the Regal Guard after that one concluded, because my gosh, what an insane battle that was. Very tight quarters. I think we learned a lot about maneuvering and troop choice, especially when it comes to the amount of terrain, how dense it was, and how we probably should have had less quantity of units and maybe higher quality. All right, so now battle 8. Where are we headed this time? Let's find out. Let's grab our little sheet here. This will tell us exactly where we're going, if we can get the glare out of there, kind of. All right, so here we go. We're rolling a d10 to figure out where on this list the next battle will be. Don't forget the rules for choosing battles. We don't do the same location twice in a row, and we don't do the same type of terrain 3 times in a row. So we don't have to worry about that one because we've only been in a city once in a row since the last battle. But we're not going to be... So if we roll a 3, we're going to re-roll it. And then the d6 we roll is going to tell us down below here the size of the battle depending on the tier of the location. All right, here we go. We have a 10. Oh my gosh, and a 6. Okay. This is going to be the largest battle so far. Oh my gosh, a 10. So a 10 means Stoldark Township. That's where the dock is. Oh my gosh, here we go. And a 6 means, and the Stoldark Township is a tier 2. It's a bigger settlement. Tier 2 and a 6 means 30 points. This is as big of a battle as you can get, and it's gonna be it's still gonna be a pretty damn big. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be nuts. Okay, so I got a lot to think about in terms of terrain and then also picking the forces. So we'll be back with terrain. All right, folks, if you think something looks a little different, you are absolutely correct. So instead of our former game space back there in the corner, we're now out here on a much bigger table, and this is a bigger battle mat. This is a 3x3 instead of a 2x2. So why is that? Well, this is the biggest Battlefields of Mana battle possible in this 31 battle campaign scenario. So I figured, let's increase the size. And I've kind of wanted to do this for a little while. So we'll have more table edge per army, so you can fit more units. Before, on a 2x2, you can fit about 8 or so units comfortably on a side. Whereas now, I don't even know, I haven't even measured it, how many units can fit over there. Lots of terrain, but I made sure to have a decent amount of room. So there's 5 inches between each terrain feature, except up here, which will be the same. It'll be even for each player, because each player's player side will be on these 2 edges here. So they have about 3.5 inches on either side of that farm between that terrain feature and the other. There's a little hill on either side if anyone wants to prop themselves up there. There's a forest on either side here. And then just the township of Stoldark. It's near the docks. I assume the docks are probably off in that direction, but otherwise, yeah, it's a merchant kind of farm. It's a amalgamation of multiple things. We've already seen a village, we've already seen a city. These are kind of both combined. Some agriculture, some mercantile, some residences. It's all here, and this, of course, is just a small slice of Stoldark. But you can see the marketplace has already kind of boarded themselves up. The villagers are inside their homes and they're just awaiting what's going to end up happening. So this is huge. 30-point battle. We'll be back with deployment. All right, folks, here it is. I know it's a lot to take in. This is a 3-foot by 3-foot Battlefields of Mana 30-point battle. We have the Regal Guard over here on the right, and we have the Lunar Knights over here on the left. So, Regal Guard rolled higher, deployed first, and thus will go first. So let's go ahead and discuss their troop choices first. 3 points for a unit of Widowers. 3 points for a unit of Mounted Archers. 3 points for Foot Archer. 2 points for Foot Archers. 4 points for Men-at-Arms. 3 points for a unit of Axes. The Warlord on his own on horseback. 3 points for Axemen. 4 points for Men-at-Arms. 2 points for Archers. The Sorcerer on his own on horseback. 3 points for Mounted Archers and 3 points for Widowers. Oh my gosh. Look at all those troops. Good God. So they have a very interesting little strategy going here, pairing the Widowers and the Mounted Archers. So these are 2 of the fastest units in the game. Fastest foot unit and fastest long-range cavalry unit. So it'll be very interesting to see. I can imagine Widowers in front and Mounted Archers behind them. They're both shooting at whatever comes at them. And yeah, it's just going to be a very interesting pairing. And then also, Archers probably scaling up that hill's probably why they're there. Same situation over here, probably narrow down the stretch of that side of the board edge. These Archers making their way into the forest. And then the 4 blocks of infantry. Axemen, Men-at-Arms, Axemen, Men-at-Arms. And I think the situation there was those are 4 hard-hitting units. And Axes don't mind losing a few troops, because as soon as they're at 50% or less casualties, 50% or more casualties, they improve with their Frenzy special rule. And the Men-at-Arms, they have a shield wall. So they're pretty stout on defense. So you have Axemen who are okay with casualties, Men-at-Arms who are great on defense, and that is one solid block. And they're lined up so that they can make their way, down this alley here, down this alley here, and so it'll be very interesting. Now the Regal Guard Warlord chose the Amulet of Time. He gets 2 attack actions a turn. Banner of Courage for a point means he gets to go first. Axe of Legend, his 6s explode. And also, if he does wound you, he may also poison you. So, he's quite the offensive warlord. Alright, it's time to discuss Lunar Knight deployment. We have a 2-point unit of swords. 3-point unit of crossbows, Sorcerer by himself on horseback, 4-point unit of flail bearers, 1-point unit of peasant militia, 6-point siege engine, catapult, 1-point peasant militia, 4-point flail bearers, warlord on horseback on his own, 3-point unit of crossbows, 4-point unit of light cavalry, and a 2-point unit of swordsmen. Good God. So many troops. Okay, so swords are down here, because obviously they want to protect the flank against whatever's coming at them this way. Crossbow's going to make their way into the forest and shoot out. Probably Sorcerer's going to be doing a little of that too, get the cover of the forest. Flail bearers on either side of the catapult, those are going to be the main offensive units, rolling lots of dice. They like what they see ahead of them. They know that those are going to be tough units to take out. Put some flail bearers there, down each alley, plus they're quick. Those Axemen and Men-at-Arms are pretty slow. Max they're going to move each turn is 6 inches. This is a 3-foot board. These flail bearers are going to be moving 8 inches a turn max. And then, of course, the 2 peasant militia units, if you're doing a catapult, this is a huge board. So it may take a unit a while to get over to the catapult, but eventually maybe something will, so we're going to have 2 peasant militia units here to defend the catapult. They're only a point apiece. Crossbows, just like their bowmen over there with that little hill, crossbows probably going to perch themselves up there. Get a +1 attack to anything that comes that way. And then swordsmen over here going down that flank as well. And they decided to put a light cav unit over here also. I think it was because, between the 2 flanks, this one's pretty stacked. The axemen and men-at-arms are closer to that board edge coming down here than the axemen and men-at-arms are over here on this board edge. So there's a bit of a gap. So I think these light cav are thinking they can, deal with these ranged units and maybe avoid having to deal with them. At least the chances of having to deal with those heavy-hitting units is less likely over on that flank than it would be if they were over here, because they're pretty close. They could kind of turn and wheel, but you never know. Anything can happen. So then the Lunar Knight Warlord took Bodolf's staff, so that's going to double the mana channeling of their sorcerer. Dodge, so re-rolling failed defense dice. Arm cannon gives him range 8, which will be fantastic with this bigger board. So, if he can't quite get into close combat, maybe he can shoot. And then Gauntlets of the Warrior, this is just going to help him out. He's very balanced. Good on defense, good on attack. And these Gauntlets of the Warrior re-roll natural attack and defense die results of 1. That includes on ranged attacks as well. So both on attack and defense, he'll be re-rolling 1. So that's a great defensive strategy for this Warlord who, if you saw the last battle, he was decimated down to only a single point of health, which I did forget he had the Squire last time. So technically he still had 3 HP left. But either way, this time all his defense dice are +1, and that's just by default. And then if he rolls any natural ones, he gets to re-roll them. If they still fail on defense, even after the +1, he gets to re-roll them. And by default, he has a parry save, saves on 6s. So it's going to be hard to wound that Warlord. Not impossible, but hard. All right, you can probably already tell this is going to be a long one. As well, here's a little special announcement. Because of the size of the board and how much longer it's going to take to get into combat, we are increasing the number of rounds. Oh, that's right. This is probably a one-time only thing during this 31-day battle report challenge. If you're watching this, you're watching probably the only 8-round battle report. Oh, that's right. And we're going to be using our special 8-sided die that we got in the Advent calendar. So check out the Rick Koeppen YouTube channel where I'm doing daily dice Advent calendar unboxings. But we are going to 8 rounds. And we're going to put this right inside the safe confines of this walled garden, because this is going to need 2 extra rounds, I think. We'll see. It's going to be 8 rounds regardless, but it'll be interesting to see if the 2 extra rounds were actually necessary or not. All right, folks. Regal Guard rolled to go first. So that's where we'll be after turn 1, Regal Guard. All right, folks. Bottom of turn 1 for the Regal Guard. Everything moved up. So as you can expect, now the archers moved forward than I thought they might. I thought they might stay behind the Bidowers, but I guess maybe they wanted to see how much range they could get with the Bidowers following up. So the Bidowers will probably next turn move ahead of the archers, but we'll see. So Bidowers, mounted archers move up to there. So as you can see, that was a pretty decent move. Archers moved on top of the hill. I don't know if they'll stay there or not. Just because, well, they may. It's a 2-point unit. But I mean, there's not a whole lot even at 12 range from the top of that hill. If anything tried to come at them, I suppose, or anything in between there. But so they have basically their side of the battlefield covered by those archers being on that hill. Slowpokes, the axes and men-at-arms. Men-at-arms were the recipient of the Warlord's Warcry die this turn, which went off without a hitch. Warlord and Sorcerer moved up. Well, as we saw, the Warlord is just stacked defensively. He wants to get involved. Those two are a nasty pair. That Sorcerer, can heal, cast a shield, and then the Warlord can do the damage. Men-at-Arms and Axemen moved up here. Over here, to avoid that hill, the Men-at-Arms were a little slower. They had to shuffle over a bit, move in behind the axes, whereas over here, they were able to move up as one. And even though they're skirting the forest a little bit, didn't impact their movement, though, because the banner bearer was outside of the forest, and that's what counts. And then, of course, the archers moved into the forest there. Mounted archers and Bidowers moving up over there. So as it stands, here is where we're at so far. And now it's Lunar Knight's turn to respond to all this. We'll be back after Lunar Knight's turn 1. All right, folks, and so this is the end of round 1 as a whole. Specifically now the end of turn 1 for Lunar Knights. Swordsmen moved up and shuffled over. They kind of want to get some protection from the woods. They won't get any this first time because those archers are coming in hot. Crossbowman moved into the woods. Sorcerer moved into the woods. He ended up channeling 5 mana. He didn't do anything with it yet. He was considering healing himself, but I think he's going to hold off on that. Flail Bearers moved up on either side. That, of course, those are the 2 main offensive units for the Lunar Knights. Peasant Militia in their classic V formation. So there is the gap here in the center and over here is not wide enough for even a single figure to get through. Now, a single figure could be here and shoot through, or could be here and shoot through, but this is the best that 2 units of Peasant Militia can do to block anyone from coming into close combat with the catapult, which you don't want. Catapult siege engines actually have decent defense against range. They have higher armor and they're +1, because it's as if the crew was hiding behind the structure of the catapult itself. So even though they'd rather not take any ranged hits, they are at least better equipped to deal with ranged attacks in close combat. So that is that. The catapult could not fire. There is nothing yet within 18 inches of the catapult this turn, which is why, in all reality, the Lunar Knights don't want to move up too far, because they want the battle to be closer to their side of the board where they can actually use their catapult. Crossbowman moved up on the hill. Warlord shot all the way over here. Warlord actually tried to get a Warcry die off on these Light Cav, but failed. Swordsman moved up. Light Cav shot up. Their idea here, because the Light Cav are about to take some shots, but I think they figure Regal Guard's going to have a choice to make, because now there's not enough room for those Bidowers to hop in front, and we definitely don't want our mounted archers in close combat with the Light Cav. So probably what's going to happen are the mounted archers are going to have to hop back, which means they will get a move and shoot penalty. So that'll save them a little bit. And then the Bidowers will probably move up and fire, taking their place. And of course, the Warlord, as we mentioned, is shooting over there, probably going to try to squeeze through here somehow, maybe. He does have a ranged shot as well. He really didn't want to deal with this mess coming at him. But he may, stick around to support his troops. But that's essentially how the end of round 1 looks. We have a huge battle just about to ensue, because it is now the beginning of turn 2, back over to the Regal Guard. All right, folks, here it is after Regal Guard turn 2. Bidowers moved up. Mounted archers moved up just enough to get shots off at the swordsmen. Of course, they were -1 for moving and shooting, and they did a wound. These archers stayed put. I guess they're just going to kind of stand there and protect the flank over here. Men-at-Arms and Axemen both moved up. The Warlord attempted to do a war cry on this unit of Men-at-Arms but failed. Axemen and Men-at-Arms moved up over there. Archers just moved up to the edge of the woods there. As we expected, mounted archers hopped back, Bidowers hopped in front. Both units, shots into the light cav, killing 2. Sorcerer moved up, just out of range though of the catapult. Channeled 3 more mana, 6 total mana, shots Pyrostorm into the flail bearers. Only did a single wound. I should mention that last turn, the Regal Guard Sorcerer won an Arcane Duel pretty badly and did 2 wounds to the Lunar Knight Sorcerer. But this turn did not do any wounds in his Arcane Duel. Warlord charged up. He is absolutely within the catapult's line of sight now. I think he is the only Regal Guard unit currently in line of sight of the catapult. Why would he do that? Well, he wants to get involved in combat. He knows they're not going to be moving up too much further. He also thinks that he might be able to get, behind their lines. Plus, he's not too afraid with the sorcerer behind him that he can get healed or shielded or what have you. So I believe that is everything. We just had a wound done here, a wound done there, 2 kills there. So that is first blood to the Regal Guard, killing 2 light cav. All right, that is it. Over to Lunar Knight's turn 2. Okay, folks, end of round 2, thus the end of Lunar Knight's turn 2. Swordsman moved at double speed just to get into contact with the Bidowers, who got a free volley and killed a swordsman. Crossbows moved up, so hopefully next turn they will either get to shoot at the mounted archers or the flank. I don't think that's going to happen, of the Bidowers. Still within the cover of the forest. Sorcerer took a step back, channeled, how many? 7 mana? Had a total of 12 mana, so he decided to take this opportunity. He could have actually shot at the Warlord, but instead he placed a 3-point shield on them, a 4-point shield on them, unfortunately only a 1-point shield on them. So the shield spell is 4 mana, and he cast 3 shields. So that'll be interesting to see if that is worth more than having taken a 12-die shot at the Warlord, or some combination of the two. He could have done maybe, an 8-die shot and still got off a shield. However, the catapult misfired. It first diverted, and then on the how far did it divert die, misfired. Thankfully rolled a 4, so it just failed to shoot that turn. It didn't take any wounds or anything like that. These flail bearers stepped back just enough so that if the Warlord wanted to get a charge in, he could. Does the Warlord want to? That'll be the question next turn, but he can. With a 6-inch charge, he could charge right into the danger zone. These crossbowmen fired. And from the hill, even though they moved and shot, it was a -1. Crossbows are +1 by default. -1 for moving and shooting brought them to just face value on their dice, but on the hill gives them another +1. So they were 6 dice +1s, got in a few hits. That Warlord doesn't have any items that helps him on defense. I mean, he has decent defense. All his dice are in defense are +1. He still took 3 wounds. That is going to make him rethink what he wants to do. Another bait and switch over here. Light Cav jumped back. I mean, that's a 4-point unit. We don't want that going down. So instead of charging into the Bidowers, taking more free volley shots, and seeing how that would go, Bidowers are polearmed, so they do have an advantage over cavalry. They jumped back. Swordsman moved in. The Warlord moved up. And of course, he has a ranged attack, so he shot into the Bidowers, doing 3 wounds. Finally, a casualty on the Regal Guard side. So I believe that is everything. Bait and switch over here, shot here, moved back here, misfired here. I think we actually took a step back over here as well. Moved and did not shoot. Moved into contact and cast shields all over the place. All right, folks, we are now moving into round 3. Let's see how the Regal Guard respond. All right, folks, end of turn 3 for the Regal Guard. Let's go right here before I forget. So the Sorcerer channeled 4 mana, cast a shield on the Warlord, who did decide to charge in. We'll see what happens. But I mean, that unit of Flail Bearers had a 3-point shield, and look, they still lost. So his 2 attacks were able to get rid of the 3-point shield and do 3 more wounds. So that definitely did some damage. And so that meant they were poisoned. Attacks back. He had a 2-point shield thanks to that Sorcerer. They did just a ton of wounds because on their first turn, Flail Bearers have Assault, so their 6s explode. And, well, that Assault is for every turn, but on their first turn, they have Frenzy, which means they each get an extra die. So they rolled 12 dice, 6s explode. They had multiple repeating, exploding 6s. In the end, they ended up doing 3 wounds, and so that got rid of the shield and did 1 more wound. He's down to 6 wounds. Their end of turn poison roll, they cured themselves of poison, so they didn't take any poison. All right, but neither one of them has a shield now. So that was the big thing. And then over here, Bidowers took a wound. And this is how it's looking. I can't remember what they did back, if anything. If they already had 2 guys missing or what. And then, oh my gosh, this was big too. Mounted archers shot into the woods, and the crossbowmen, even with the cover bonus, failed it miserably and took like 4 casualties. Well, 2 casualties, but 4 wounds. These archers stayed. These archers stayed. Both of these units both shot all shots into that Warlord, but again, he's so hard to hit. He rerolls 1s, then he rerolls anything else that didn't get through, and then everything's also +1. So even after, 11 shots, he only took a wound. So you can see these Warlords are very stout, which is why they're both making kind of risky decisions over here. And then we moved up. Again, we're okay with moving these Axemen up because that catapult hits them. Hey, number 1, the catapult has to hit first. We're not, 100% confident that's even going to happen. But if it does, hey, good. That'll get these Axemen into prime fighting condition. They want to be at least 50% casualties or more. We do have a Warcry die that went off there, so these 2 men-at-arms units, they're getting dangerously close. And there's not too terribly much, over here to stop them either. I think that is pretty much everything. So shots, moved up, cast a shield, close combat, moved up, stayed put, shots, close combat, and now it is the bottom of turn 3 with Lunar Knights. Let's see how they respond. All right, folks, bottom of round 3, end of turn 3 for the Lunar Knights. Down here, Swordsman took no wounds, but delivered 1 wound, killing a Bidower. Crossbows over here did some wounds. Flail Bearers stood there. The Sorcerer, what did the Sorcerer do? I actually think the Sorcerer may have attacked those mounted archers. So I think maybe the crossbows did a wound, the Sorcerer did 2 wounds, that's why there's 3 wounds over there. Flail Bearers braced. I debated having the Sorcerer cast another shield over there. I went offensive instead. We'll see if that was a mistake. These crossbows shot into the Warlord, doing nothing. Light cavalry formed facing this direction. Swordsmen moved back so that even if these mounted archers moved up right behind the Bidowers, and also shifted over so that there'd be no way they'd get a shot at those swordsmen. And then here, the warlord killed another Bidower, and I believe took a wound in response because he decided to charge. So that was the other thing. He was like, well, do I charge in and take a free volley, which is what did the wound, or do I stand back and keep shooting? Because he does have the option to shoot, but if he stands there and shoots, both of these units would be able to shoot at him. But now that he's in combat, this effectively blocks line of sight. So that's what happened. Not a whole lot, just a couple wounds on either flank mostly. And all this is slowly moving up because we are now entering round 4 of the game, starting with Regal Guard. All right, folks, end of turn 4 for the Regal Guard. Shots into the woods. This time the cover save saved them. No wounds. Kind of a toss-up here. They aren't taking any wounds from the Bidowers, but they're slowly chipping away at the Bidowers in return. Men-at-Arms, Axemen both move up. Men-at-Arms, Axemen separate and move up. Here was just a slaughter of the Flailbearers, not a single wound in return. Sorcerer took a shot up at the crossbows, did a wound. Bidowers braced. Mounted archers move this way. They figure they may be more help over there than sitting over there and doing nothing. So this is what we're looking like at this point. And I should say, I can't remember if I have been saying or not, but the catapult failed to do anything 3 turns in a row, I guess now. So we'll see what ends up happening as we move into turn 4 for Lunar Knights. Can they get that catapult rolling? All right, folks, this is how everything looks at the end of Lunar Knights turn 4, at the end of round 4. So the game is now half over. All right, so here's what happened. Swordsmen cut that unit of Bidowers in half, taking a wound themselves. Crossbowmen shot at the mounted archers. These flail bearers charged into combat, cut that unit of axemen in half. They took 5 wounds in return. Thank goodness for that shield, so they only actually have a wound on them. The stupid catapult. I mean, that's the 4th turn in a row it missed. And not only did it miss, that's a second misfire. So you have to imagine, in order to misfire, you first have what? It would be 2/3 chance of missing, first of all. And then in that 2/3, you have 1 in 6 of misfiring. And so that has now happened twice. And this time they actually did take a wound. But that catapult, 6 points, plus you'd think, 2 more points for the protection for it. That's 8 points. That's 2 more units of flail bearers that they have spent on that, and it has not done anything except hurt itself. Flail bearers here brace themselves. The sorcerer channeled 5 mana, is reserving 1, cast a shield. Unfortunately, only a shield of 1, so that was a waste of 4 mana. Over here, a little bit more productive. We'll see what ends up happening here, because these crossbowmen just shot and did 3 more wounds to that warlord. Thought about doing something with the light cav, but decided to keep them there for now, because if they charged into these men-at-arms, these axemen would just flank them. Moved in with the swordsmen. They took a wound from the free volley because the warlord broke away, didn't take any wounds, even though he failed to break away without penalty, but the breakaway wounds didn't do anything to him. So he took a shot at the archers and did not do a damn thing. So I think that is everything, and that's how it looks at the halfway point. We are now starting round 5, turn 5 of 8 with Regal Guard. All right, folks, this is the end of Regal Guard turn 5. Braced ourselves with the Bidowers here. Shot with the mounted archers there, doing nothing. These axes destroyed the flail bearers. In conjunction with the mounted archers that moved up and shot them in the flank, they have 2 men left. But as you can see, the flail bearers did reduce them down to their banner bearer. Men-at-Arms moved up because they anticipate the axis falling, and then they will move into place. Warlord moved back. He's hoping to get healed or something. But the sorcerer only channeled a single mana, so he's holding on to that for now. And the sorcerer moved back to ensure that he wouldn't get hit by the catapult, because this sorcerer's down to 6 HP. During the arcane duel, this sorcerer said, you know what, this is a perfect chance. Arcane duel, no, backfired. He ended up taking 2 wounds. Archers in the forest moved and shot at the warlord, doing nothing. Bidowers up there braced. Men-at-Arms moved and turned, facing them. These axes moved up, had to use 2 movement to do it, so they are not quite there yet, but that is how things are looking. Honestly, unless they can get this catapult going, it's not looking the best for the Lunar Knights. All right, we'll be back after Lunar Knight turn 5. All right, folks, end of Lunar Knights turn 5. They just don't roll the best, but I think what happened here was crossbows cut the mounted archers in half finally. Swordsmen cut the Bidowers in half. Braced ourselves with the flail bearers. Sorcerer moved up, took a shot at the warlord. He only had 3 wounds left. Sorcerer channeled a ton of mana, did 9 shots, managed a single wound. Don't forget, those 9 shots were all +1, and the defender got no defensive bonuses. 1 wound. I'm telling you, I don't know how the Lunar Knights did so well in all those battles when they roll so terribly, and it's pretty consistent too. Take another example. Catapult missed again. Though it did divert into these mounted archers, so you're thinking, okay, well, at least it's going to hit a unit. Yes, 12 dice, all +1, 6s explode. These guys have no defensive bonuses. 3 wounds. Can you believe it? 3 wounds. I'd rather it had done nothing so I could continue, making excuses that it never hits. Here, flail bearers braced again. Shots from the crossbows into the flank of the axes killed 2 of them. Swordsman and the warlord in the rear. You'd think that would have done something. Well, they killed a Bidower. Cut him in half at least. So there's that. All right, so overall, just not a whole lot. We are now moving into round 6 of 8. So we gotta start seeing some progress here. All right, so we'll be back at the end of turn 6 for Regal Guard. All right, folks, that is the end of turn 6 for the Regal Guard. So in a normal game, this would have been it after the end of turn 6. So what'd they do? Brace themselves here. Mounted archers finally got that unit cut in half. Brace themselves with these axes. They're like, if the flail bearers are bracing themselves against us, we're just going to brace ourselves right back. Men-at-Arms moved in, took a double move, but they did move into contact with the sorcerer, who only has 6 HP left. Arcane Duel backfired on this sorcerer, so he took 2 wounds. These guys were going to shoot into the sorcerer until the Men-at-Arms moved and blocked their shot. Axes actually took some hits there, and in return only did a single wound, which knocked the flailbearer's shield off. Double move over here. Men-at-Arms into those guys. They're hoping to at least cut them in half by the end of the game, if not destroy them. Brace themselves with the Bidowers. Archers shot into the warlord, did no wounds. The sorcerer also channeled, only channeled 2, so still not enough for a heal or a shield, which there was desperately needed on the warlord, so the warlord just hightailed it. No way to get the warlord at this point. So that is where it sits at this point. We're going to go into turn 6 now for the Lunar Knights. All right, folks, end of round 6. Turn 6 for the Lunar Knights is over. Shots exchanged here. Not a whole lot happened. 1 of each have been killed here. The Bidowers killing a swordsman. They only got 3 shots. They kill off a swordsman who, unfortunately, they at least did a wound, which killed off a Bidower, so it's just absolutely insane. The catapult actually hit this time, cutting that unit of mounted archers in half. So this 6-point catapult has now netted us a point. Awesome. Flail bears actually finished off that axeman. Flail bears here brace themselves. The sorcerer shot into those axes. Those crossbows, which I've been neglecting to give them +3, because they're +1 normally, +2 for being on the hill, +3 for shooting into a flank. But still, 6 shots, all +3. Well, they did 2 wounds, so that's not, too terrible, right? We braced ourselves there with the light cav, and again, can't believe it. These Bidowers are hanging on. The Warlord and all those swords combined, 2 wounds. Awesome. And I believe that is it. So if the game were to end right now, because it is the end of 6, which is normal regulation time, what would the score be as of right now? Well, the Regal Guard have not completely killed any Lunar Knight units yet, but they would have a lot of half points or halving units. So here is a point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that it? I think it may be. So 4 points for having 4 units cut in half. That seems really low. How many units do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we had 10 units. So cutting 4 units in half is 4 points. Now, the Lunar Knights have just completely destroyed 1 unit just now, a 3-point unit of axes. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So right now it is 8-4 if we ended the game now. But we're not, and we agreed we weren't. So there's still 2 turns left to see what ends up happening. And this is going to be bad for the Lunar Knights, I'm sure, because that's not looking good for them. This could go either way, but still those flail bears are not looking the best. So, yeah, we'll see. We will see. Still anybody's game. We will be back at the end of Regal Guard turn 7. All right, folks, I don't want to jinx anything, but I think the betting odds for a Lunar Knight victory just went up. Okay, so here is what happened. Archers shot it. Crossbows did nothing. The Regal Guard, after we calculated how far behind they were, they really couldn't afford to brace anywhere. So even here, they thought maybe they were doing double the wounds to the swordsmen that the swordsmen were doing back. So they were going to try to kill a swordsman this turn, block the rest, and kill the other swordsman next turn. No, they didn't do any wounds, but they did lose a Bidower there. Up here, these flail bearers, so there's still 1 left, and they did 3 wounds in return. Up here, those flail bearers didn't take any wounds, but also didn't do anything. These men-at-arms only did a wound to the light cav, but took 3 wounds themselves. Bidowers up there braced. These mounted archers moved to shoot these crossbows in the flank, doing a wound. Sorcerer and these archers converged to attack the Warlord. Now this Warlord's going to be hightailing it. He took 5 wounds. So he's going to be moving out of there soon. I think that's everything. This Warlord continues to remain in the backfield. We will be back after Lunar Knights turn 7. All right, folks, and this is the end of round 7, end of Lunar Knights turn 7. A wound apiece here. That's 2 points if we can do 1 more wound to him. We already got a wound or a point for cutting that unit in half. Just need to finish him off. That's 2 points. Shots here, that's 3 cav wounds left. There's 3 shots there. Maybe, unless they run off, we may be able to finish them off next turn. Unlikely. So these peasant militia moved up and are now in the flank of these men-at-arms, which allowed this flail-bearer to run off without penalty, broke away. These crossbows finished off that axeman. Those flail-bearers had braced. Don't need that anymore. Shots, 8 shots from the sorcerer into the rear of the men-at-arms. That's 8 dice, all +2, not a single wound. 8 dice, all +2. The defender got no special defensive abilities whatsoever, because that's the rules of the Pyro Storm, and they still managed to block all 8 hits. Otherwise, the Cav there, Light Cav, are bracing themselves. They got a Warcry die from the Warlord, who ran from that side over to this side, thinking there'd be a unit of swordsmen there. What ended up happening? The catapult. The effing catapult. We had targeted here. It diverted 10 inches right onto those swordsmen. Actually, I need to grab a wound marker because that guy has 1 wound left on him. Shrapnel hits hit the Warlord, thankfully doing nothing. Shrapnel hits also hit that last Bidower, killing him. So technically, we got 2 points for the Bidower kill, but we lost a point for getting the swordsman cut in half. If that swordsman dies, I blame it on the catapult, so it ends up being a wash. And the catapult still only netted us a single point. But right now, the catapult has now done us 3 victory points, but cost us 1, so it's a net of 2. But if the Warlord now gets killed, because he's kind of out in the open for this sorcerer and these archers to come around here, that's 5 points. Oh my god, that would be an absolute nightmare. There's still points to be had for the Regal Guard. Let's see what they can do. Okay, folks, end of turn 8 for the Regal Guard. So the Regal Guard are done. Here, they decided to brace themselves. Why? Well, you don't actually have to declare whether or not you're bracing yourself until after the ranged attack phase. So these mounted archers, with only 2 shots left, you know, these swordsmen did have 2 swordsmen left, 1 with a wound. So they figure, well, 2 shots, 2 wounds, and then 1 shot kills off the last guy. But unfortunately, 2 shots into the flank, we called that a flank shot, only did a wound. So with only 1 die, it's impossible to do 2 wounds here. So if the Lunar Knights want to get greedy and try to go after this last wound here, they are bracing themselves. But otherwise, so they're in the best position they could be to not give up those 2 points. Okay. So they reformed here, did the men-at-arms. They thought with 6 shots all +1 against peasant militia, they may have been able to kill off that back row, at least get a half a point, but no, they only killed 1. In return, though, the peasant militia killed a man-at-arms, so now they are 1 wound away from getting cut in half and losing a point there. What in the world else happened? Men-at-arms failed to do the final wound. Now, to the Lunar Knights' credit, they had braced, they also had a Warcry die, plus all their defense dice, and so they were able to block that last shot. And now the men-at-arms only have 1 man left in the back there. Shots here onto this last flail bearer. I think he had a friend when they were shooting, so he is still alive, though, with a single wound left. Shots over here. Archers into the swordsman remnant, killed him. Finally, a unit killed for the Regal Guard, and then the sorcerer channeled mana, channeled enough to do, I think he channeled 3, so it was a 3-die attack. He only had 3 wounds left, but he did take a wound, the Warlord, down to 2 HP. So I think that pretty much sums it up for the Regal Guard. We will go into counting the points and everything after the Lunar Knights. Turn 8. Okay, folks, end of round 8, thus the end of the game. End of turn 8 for the Lunar Knights. Let's see here. Swordsmen were able to kill off that last Bidower. Crossbows were able to kill one more mounted archer, but could not finish off the unit. Peasants could not do the final wound to cut that unit in half, but they were cut in half by the men-at-arms, which you would expect. The men-at-arms cost 4 times as much as the peasants. Shots from the sorcerer into the back of the men-at-arms cut them in half. Those light cav braced, repositioned, and shots into the mounted archers killed off one more of them. Actually, I'm not even sure if they killed anything. They may have actually done no wounds or maybe a wound or something. The catapult actually hit there on the mounted archers and did 2 wounds. So probably worst catapult showing I've ever experienced. I mean, they netted us like a point, maybe 2 points, depending on if you count those swordsmen getting destroyed. Maybe 3 points. The warlord actually shot at the sorcerer during the magic phase. The Lunar Knight sorcerer did an arcane duel and actually wounded the sorcerer. So we went from 5 to 4. You know, our warlord has a 4-die ranged attack, so that could have killed him, and it almost did. 2 more wounds. So that sorcerer is limping away with 2 HP. The warlord's still sitting back there with 2 HP. And that is it, folks. This was the biggest battle, longest battle of Battlefields of Mana I have ever played. So now it's time to round up the points. Who has what left, essentially? Let's start moving stuff out of the way, because this is going to be pretty interesting to see exactly what is remaining. So for Regal Guard, they have a mounted archer still there, a couple mounted archers still there, so that's 2 points left, 2 points left. Of course, the warlord and the sorcerer are still alive, so no points for the Lunar Knights for killing either of those, even though they did badly wound them. 2 full units of archers, so the archers in the woods over here definitely helped. These archers never even took a shot. I'm wondering if maybe that was a poor positioning of them, but it's only a 2-point unit. But still, that's 2 2-point units of archers there. And we still have 3 points worth of men-at-arms. Of course, it's a 4-point unit, but they were cut in half, so that's a pity point, essentially. Partial point, I should say, for cutting them in half. These men-at-arms were not cut in half, so that is a full 4 points still of them. And I think that is all the Regal Guard has left is right there. So then, on the Lunar Knight side of things, they too have their ranged units there. Here's our sorcerer. 6 HP left. Our warlord, 2 HP left. So the leaders were badly wounded on both sides in this one. Peasant militia, 1 unit cut in half, so that's half a point. Since they only cost a point, the pity point for cutting them in half is only half. Get rid of that. Catapult, of course, took a wound on its own because it misfired, but it's still there. Here's a swordsman. Here are the 2 flail-bearer remnants. Can you believe it? 2 flail-bearer remnants. And that's 6 points right there. They, of course, were 4 points, but again, cut in half means a point was scored. So here's everything the Lunar Knights have left. Still have light cav, crossbows, half a crossbow, 1 swordsman banner bearer, peasant militia, cut in half, peasant militia, catapult, flail bearer, flail bearer. So, what did the Regal Guard destroy? Well, the Regal Guard only was able to completely destroy 1 unit. That's a 2-point unit of swords. So that's 2, 3, 4. No, not 3. They didn't get anything for that. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. Isn't that something? 6.5 points. 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. 6.5 points for the Regal Guard. For the Lunar Knights, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. Good God, 15 to 6.5. Is that right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yep. 15 points for the Lunar Knights and 6.5 points for the Regal Guard. In the township of Stoldark, this battle has gone to the Lunar Knights. All right, let's go over here and get our sticker placed. Now, I'll tell you what, and that catapult didn't do a damn thing, and it was a detriment more than an asset, and that was a 6-point catapult with 2 points of peasants guarding him. That's 8 points. Imagine what more the Lunar Knights could have done. Now, of course, the Lunar Knight strategy was to sit back, and that may have been costly for the Regal Guard. I'm just still kind of surprised. Now, if they would have taken out those last banner bearers of those flail bearers, that would have been another 6 points. So that would have been 12.5 to 15. So, I don't like where I put that. Because, you know, we are bound to have multiple battles in the same location. I doubt for the township of Stoldark, though, we'll ever do anything that big again. That took forever. All right, so that was Battle 8. Ugh, that's a worse-looking 8. For Battlefields of Mana 31-day battle reports, Battle 8, if you made it this far, I mean, congratulations. That is an accomplishment. 8 battles so far, 6-2 in favor of the Lunar Knights. I mean, my gosh, Lunar Knights are destroying things. And I can't believe they won that one. And I was complaining most of the game about how Lunar Knights were falling sincerely, severely behind. But in the end, they doubled. They over-doubled the victory points. They had that catapult, and they just sat back and waited for the Regal Guard to come to them, and unfortunately, the Regal Guard couldn't do a whole lot. I was worried at first, definitely worried at first, but, yep, in the end, Lunar Knights pulled it out. All right, folks. Check out my Rick Koeppen YouTube channel. I can't remember if I said this already, but I'm doing a die-a-day Dice Advent Calendar unboxing every day, and on the SupremeYDNAC channel, hoodies. A new hoodie every day. My 31 favorite hoodie countdown. Otherwise, stay tuned on this channel. Tomorrow, we are going to have another Battlefields of Mana battle report. I just don't know where we're going to wind up next. It's going to be exciting. So, as always, folks, thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it. And until next time.